All right, hey everyone, back with another episode of D'ART Shtajio's vlog, episode 22. Are we at 22?
Oh shit, I don't
22?
know.
23? 20?
You gotta get like one of those vlog counters.
Oh, with the vlog. Oh, with the
like,
V.
It's like a little like.
Well, whatever the number, we're back. I'm Henry Thurlow.
Arthell, Isom.
All right, so this week, a few days ago, we had a pretty good write-up about us on the internet.
Comic book
Resources,
man. Like that's so crazy. Like you definitely gotta say thank you to comic book resources because, I mean, shoot, like that was.
Well, we've actually been written up by a lot of people, to be honest, over the years. Like I'm always sitting here complaining, like, why don't we have any recognition and followers and all that stuff? But I feel like a bunch of people, we got written up in the Japan Times a couple times.
No, like there's our names are like all over the internet.
I was on BuzzFeed the years back, and we've been on things, you know. But this was one that kind of blew up a little bit. That's pretty cool. So we got a kind of boost. So maybe a bunch of you guys watching this week are kind of new followers who just heard about us finally. Thanks to that.
Followers, thank you for following.
Yes.
Click the subscribe, click the like, and don't forget that bell.
Ding, ding, ding. So this is a vlog that Arthell and I put on every week. We've been doing that this year. We just started this year, but we're pretty consistent doing it every week. We don't get it out the exact same day every week. Sometimes we're a few days late, but
we just talk about different things, like, you know, so I think we're still trying to find our voice in it. There's a lot of things that that people want to hear and stuff like that. So we go through the comments, and you know, if there's interesting questions, then that'll be our next topic. But we also generally just talk about our viewpoints of what's happening in the animation animation industry in general.
We stick with keeping it like an animation and anime kind of vlog. Obviously, we have opinions about everything in the world, but it's not just randomly our opinions. It's not the Henry and Arthell variety show. We kind of keep it
talking about anime and the industry, and of course, since we started a company, so we talk about a few things that that are required to start companies, and and as we keep going along, you know, you guys might have questions about like what are some of the processes and the difficulties that we're having, you know, because of course we're a starting company, and you know, try to share those things with you guys as we're going.
If you guys have any suggestions for topics that we haven't done yet, put them down there in the comment section. We'll definitely read them, and then maybe in an upcoming week, pretty soon, we'll be talking about your exact comment. For new people and for people who been here since the beginning, go back and check out our old stuff to hear about like how Arthell and I came to Japan and kind of set up this whole thing. We've done that introduction a bunch of times, so I was thinking, the telling our story up until now kind of story. So I was thinking this week's topic could be an introduction in an almost different way. We could talk about our goals from here on out. We've talked about like what kind of stuff we'd like to produce if we had the option. What if we had to make an animation adaptation of a live action series or a book series or whatever? What do we want? But those are just kind of, fanciful ideas and, brain experiment for that question. What at the end of the day is our real goal though? Like we came out to Japan, we were doing this whole studio thing, we're working our butts off on all these animated projects. Like obviously it's our passion, and we've gone into that again and again on a lot of episodes, but like this week, like what's your dream? Like I know I can rant about it, so I'm going to kick it over to you maybe first for a little bit. No, you want me to go? You want me to
what is
you want to see what's
Henry's dream?
All right. So it's broken up into two parts, right? The first part is the dream for the studio, and the second part is the personal dream, right? Obviously, it especially for now, what's most important, I think, is the studio. I think any personal dream kind of depends on the success of the studio, to be honest. I think a successful studio that is capable of producing some major things, and us at the top of that studio results in a lot of really unique opportunities for us as individuals. But first things first, and we got to prove ourselves. We got to make sure everything we produce is a certain quality line. I think we're pretty much on the exact same page as that. In fact, I'll let you rant about that even more. Actually, how about you step in? Let's before we talk about individual stuff, like what do you want to see for the specific future of this studio? What do you want this to become?
Yeah, right. Like I think. What do we want this to become? Because of course the goal, right? Like we're out here, we started the first process, right? We put down the foundation. Like we're like, okay, cool, we have a company. Then like it's like, well, where do you go from there? What kind of company does this company become? And I think that's kind of where we're really focused on right now. Is like, what does our company become? What is the, trying to find our creative voice in this anime void, this animation void, right? Like where does our company? I think that's something that we've been trying to. So perhaps there's like two things like where we're split up, right? Like where it's like what is the structure of a company, right? So that's like the main focus, even more so probably than creativity, like just making sure that our developmental process, the pipelines are in place, that we're using the proper software, and that our ability to train staff.
Well, it's interesting. Let me just cut in 1 second.
Yeah.
So, in case the breakdown is unclear, let's break it down. Arthell is the CEO. Arthell is the owner of the studio. He's the creator of the studio. He created the name, and we actually talked about that on a previous episode.
It's a good name. Remember it.
It's a name. It's a name. We can all agree it's a name. And I'm like the director here, right? So I think coming in, I had the most understanding of the full spectrum of what producing an anime took, whereas you stuck with backgrounds for years and years, and it's like super skilled at that. But it was like, well, what are the different steps to actually pass around the sequences to get them done? And I bring that. I bring the knowledge of how do we actually make a lot of the anime aspect of the anime. And so lead director at the studio, owner of the studio. And so your answer is such a CEO answer because part of one of your goals now, I think what you were just explaining is how do I create just a successful company? Not almost the future of D'ART so much, but like a goal and a challenge for you is how to turn nothing into a successful company, right? So that's almost not really the question I was asking now, but it's interesting. It is interesting that your mind goes there because as a CEO, that challenge is always something you're thinking about. But so rather than just like that challenge as a CEO, like what does Arthell Isom want D'ART to be in the future?
Okay. So. I think like what I want, kind of what I visualize they are becoming is, and that's actually even a harder question for me.
Really?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, like I think it's like, because I'm trying to figure out what is the proper answer, which I know that there isn't one, right? Like we're always just chatting, but I'm
gonna cut in again. I apologize for that, but it's just Arthell. And it comes back to not only the CEO thing, but I think just generally your personality. You really are, I guess it depends on the situation, because certain situations this could be flipped, but I think you are the nice one and I'm the not nice one. Because you're always thinking like, what is the professional way? What is some appropriate things to say? Like you probably have some answers, but maybe it's like a mean businessman answer, right? And it's like, I don't want to say that to the people, right? But so, and me, I'm just like, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel, and then I don't care if I lose 100 followers in the process, right? But so I think though. I think you know certain things that you want the studio to become. You want it to become financially successful, massively so, have millions of followers, get tons of respect, etc., etc. Of course, that's what you want.
Of course, those are the answers, right? But we have to consider our other, the other companies that are around us. But
Well, okay. I think in terms of the studio, right now, right now, I think maybe not to look too far off into the future and giant lofty goals.
Yeah.
I think we need to just prove that we're legit, right? That's like the very next goal that I want people to really see. You know, that doesn't mean we're the best studio immediately from day one, you know? But when you think of, like, I could rattle off a ton of anime studio names, right? Like Production IG, Madhouse, Gonzo, Toei, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, the fans out there have their list of what studios they like and don't like. And one of the studios I said they probably put lower or higher on the list. I just want, when we say D'ART, for it to feel like it fits there.
Well, yeah, exactly. That is something I can definitely kind of go off on, like, add to. I think, like, that's something that I do want, right? Like, we want that when people list their favorite studios in Japan or from out here at least, or it's in the world, like, oh, what are your favorite animation studios? That D'ART is somewhere in that list, and like, I think, like, what I guess we're, because then I start going back to the CEO answer, but like what you said is like how do we, like, what is being legit? How do we, like, solidify what our company stands for and what we produce? Because that is the goal. Like, a lot of, like, even in some of the, now we have a lot of new followers, which we're always thankful for and we very, like, appreciate it. And then I was just looking through some of the comments, and people were like, well, I just hope they make something good. But it's really interesting because I don't think anyone makes a company and says, I'm going to make something bad, right? Like, so we hope that you guys follow us along and see that we are very serious. Like Henry said, like, that is our goal, is that, like think about Godzilla. Godzilla first started with a guy in a puppet costume, right? Like, it wasn't the Godzilla that we see now. Like, it took time to build up, but with the goal that this was what Godzilla would become, kind of like this real monster thing. And I think that is every day that Henry and I come to this studio and we sit down with our staff, that it's like, we're not just, oh, hey, let's just draw something in the sketchbook. Like, that's not the goal, right? Like, because our goal is to make our studio a very serious, very, like, respected, not only in the West but also here in Japan where we are, you know, and so it's like we have to constantly daily think about, which is hard because that like, you know, we want to just be able to be creative and just do stuff, but then we have to think, what are the requirements that, you know, because that is a really separate thing. But anyway,
well, what I was gonna go on to next is personal goals, right? And so this is just like, we'll have 100% different answers, because this is just like the Henry Thurlow, like, what do I want to see happen? I mentioned it in the past probably as just like a one-off, but it's like the Quentin Tarantino of the anime industry. But by which I mean, like I want Satoshi Kon, Yoshiaki Kawajiri, like, when you hear those names, like, certain projects and certain art styles just jump right into your head, right? And you're like, oh, that's the guy that made that, and that, right? Yeah. Some of them are 100% original stories that they just made, and it's like, oh, that's a so-and-so original. I love the stuff that comes out of their head. And then among those people I mentioned also, there's adaptations. Satoshi Kon didn't write Paprika. That's a book. But it's such a Satoshi Kon adaptation. Like, it's the most Satoshi Kon adaptation that could possibly exist.
And the book is a surreal book anyway.
Of course. But obviously the music, the types of cutting, the characters, they all are exactly what he wanted. So, like, what I want is to be that. I want people to be like, oh, did you hear Henry Thurlow's making his 4th movie? I really like the first 3. Man, does he do all these unique things with his projects. It could be, and I want to 100% write some and be like, oh, wait until you see this story that you've never seen before, because it's 100% out of my head. And then I wouldn't mind adapting things too, but when I do adapt, and I want to be the stubborn director, right? And be like, it's going to be the most Henry Thurlow adaptation in the world. And let me just mention, like, I do feel D'ART is not only the best, but maybe only chance that could possibly happen. And what I mean by that is, like, this might sound crazy, because D'ART is like, it sounds like such a challenging thing, right? creating a studio on the other side of the planet in a country that isn't in your native language, and then actually making the company successful, and then finally being in charge of productions. And yet, even with that almost impossible to accomplish checklist, it's still more realistic that, look, I don't make kid stuff, right? I don't want to pitch Adult Swim, Cartoon Network stuff. I know people that do that. I know some of the showrunners of some actual kind of big things, right? And they want that, and so then they can produce it because there's an avenue. But you guys, to some extent, probably know the kind of stuff I like. Look at Sturgill Simpson's Sound and Fury and my segment from that. So, like, look at where my mind goes. Look at the dark places. Disney's never producing anything I make. It doesn't matter how good my pitch is. Warner Brothers is never producing that. I can't walk into Madhouse and say, hey, I want you guys to produce my anime for me. You know, Yoshiaki Kawajiri like even wants to produce like a Ninja Scroll 2, and he can't even get it at Madhouse, the studio he's always worked with. It's completely unreasonable to assume that there is a path beyond making your own path, aka building something up from scratch. And so that's why I do what I do and where I hope to get.
No, you know, it's interesting because that, I think, like, so Henry said that we probably have a different idea. Well, obviously we do have a different idea of what we want, right? But some of those things I can
overlap.
Yeah, I think they overlap. Like, because we want to, like, I want kind of a similar thing. Well, I guess whereas like Henry visualizes his name being announced amongst directors, really famous directors. I actually don't have a list of directors, but I think we talk all the time, and I have, like, I visualize the company's name being amongst like very large studios, right? It's like Disney, Pixar, D'ART kind of thing. Like that to me is really the goal, right? And I think, and then when it comes to the creative part, like similar to what, that's obviously why we both came out here. It's like to have the creative freedom to be able to make the things that we want to make and tell new stories, right? Because, like what's the stories that are being told in the West are not the stories that we want to tell. And then and then it's interesting because even the stories that are being told in Japan are not the stories they want to tell. But and so for us, it really is like this is just the medium that we prefer to use to tell our stories. And then we want to be we want to be in a position that we can use this medium of choice superbly, and then to be able to tell these stories that we have, right? And it just a lot of our like followers and things and fans and things like that, like a lot of the creatives out there who probably want kind of similar things. Like you have these stories in your mind that you've had since I read someone in one of the comments that I've been thinking of the story since I was in 4th grade or something. And and I think that's how it is, right? Like we have these stories and we have these ideas and we have these, like we watch movies and we're like, man, it'd be so much better if this happened or there was a character.
Yes.
And it's like to be able to but the only way to do that is to then, which like so Henry said, Quentin Tarantino and all these guys, like that is what they did. It was like, well, this is what I liked when I was younger. You know, I like Quentin Tarantino liked the spaghetti westerns and he liked the kung fu things and he liked it, but then he envisioned having those crazy genres be together in his own stories. And it's like, but no one would have been able to do that except for him. And if he was trying to pitch that to people, like they'd be like, what are you talking about, right? And then like so, and that's kind of like both Harry and I, like we have these stories and we have these ideas of that we'd like to tell, like stories that I've heard, like that I thought of when I was in my neighborhood back when I was a kid, things that just happened, and I was like, wow, this would be like an interesting story, right? How would my experiences be viewed through this character's life? I think that'd be interesting, and then to be able to put ourselves in a position to do that, like you said, we have to have our own company to do that, right? And
I think what we want is very difficult, but I think we're giving it the best shot we can. And we've made progress for all the feelings of like we haven't gotten far enough yet, and we certainly haven't because we're in no position to make the things that we just explained. But baby steps, and we've had a lot of baby steps.
It's all about the foundation, man. It's all about Shtajio.
Shtajio. The foundation is important. Go back to like the first episode. go review the meaning of that for all the new fans. That's our studio saying. Shtajio.
Yes,
See you guys next time.
Peace.
Bye.